Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's deep dive is all about advanced English listening practice. Our topic is the secret to understanding native speakers.
And it's the ultimate challenge, isn't it? We hear it all the time from learners who are, incredibly advanced.
Right. They can write perfect essays. They know all the grammar rules.
Exactly. But then they get into a real live conversation and, well, it all just collapses. The words fly by so fast, they seem to just melt into each other. It's an incomprehensible stream of sound.
That's the pain point. That is the exact frustration we're talking about today. You've mastered the language on the page, but when you hear it spoken, it feels like a completely different language. You've got these weird accents, idioms that make no sense, and just a pace that your brain can't keep up with.
And our mission here is to really break that down and turn all that confusion into something practical, something you can actually use. Because the big secret, we should say this right up front, it's not about memorizing more vocabulary. It's not more flashcards. Spoken language is this whole holistic thing. It's a tapestry. You have to understand the music of it, the cultural cues, the implied meanings. We have to go beyond just the words themselves.
Okay, let's unpack that. So we've broken this down into 4 key areas to sort of crack this code. First, we'll get into what we're calling the sonic landscape, the actual music and rhythm of English.
That's why it's so tricky.
Right. Then second, we'll move into the hidden meanings, all the figurative stuff, idioms that native speakers just throw around without thinking. Third, we'll dig into the cultural context, so all the unwritten rules of conversation.
The unspoken part.
Exactly. And finally, we'll leave you with some really concrete active strategies and tools, how you can actively train your ear to finally catch up. So we have to start with the sound. I mean, that's where it all breaks down first, right? You can know a word on a page, but then someone from, Glasgow or California says it, and you don't even recognize it. Why is that?
It's the sheer phonetic variability. English is. It's like a global language, which means it comes in this incredible kaleidoscope of accents and dialects.
Okay.
Most learners get really, really good at hearing one type of English. Maybe it's General American from movies, or maybe BBC English, RP.
Sure, the standard ones.
But the moment they hear anything else, it just sounds like static. Their brain can't process it.
So let's get specific. Beyond just like the way someone says the A in bath, what are some of the technical things that really trip people up?
Well, one of the biggest ones is the R sound. The difference between what we call rhotic and non-rhotic speech.
Rhotic.
It just means you pronounce the R sound. So American English is mostly rhotic. You hear the R in car or hard.
Right.
But in a lot of British English, Australian English, that R at the end of a syllable just vanishes. Car becomes call. If your brain is listening for that R sound and it's not there, you might genuinely miss the entire word. The whole shape of the word has changed.
And it's not just the R, is it? I've heard the T sound is a huge one.
Oh, absolutely. Think about the word water. In the U.S., it often sounds like a quick waiter.
Waiter, yeah.
In Britain, you might hear a clearer T. But then in some parts of London, especially in fast speech, the T at the end of a word like what just becomes a glottal stop.
A what?
A glottal stop. It's like a little catch in the back of your throat. So what has no T sound at all. It's just what. If you're listening for a crisp T and you get nothing, your brain just registers noise, not a word.
Wow. So you combine that with different intonation patterns, the musical rise and fall of the voice, and it's no wonder people get lost. It's less about knowing the word and more about knowing all the different ways that word can sound.
Precisely. And that's not even counting the lexical differences. The different words people use. We always joke about lift versus elevator.
Biscuit versus cookie.
Right. But that stuff happens constantly. An American asks for fries, a Brit asks for chips. If you don't have that secondary vocabulary ready to go, you're just missing pieces of the puzzle.
So, okay, the advice is to build an auditory portfolio. But that sounds overwhelming. Where does a learner even begin? Should they just focus on one accent to start?
I think targeted exposure is the way to go, at least at first. If you work with people from the UK, then yeah, you should be watching British TV shows, listening to British podcasts.
Makes sense.
But for overall comprehension, you have to diversify. It's like training your ear for music. If you only ever listen to classical, jazz is going to sound like chaos at first. You need broad exposure, movies, news, podcasts from the UK, the US, Australia, Ireland, everywhere. It helps your brain generalize the rules of English sound.
Okay, that makes sense. But no matter the accent, there's always a speed problem. And that gets us to the next big thing, which is connected speech. This is where it gets really fascinating. Native speakers just sort of merge all their words together.
This is, without a doubt, the single biggest hurdle. Learners are listening for nice, neat, separate words like in a textbook, but native speakers are all about phonetic efficiency. We link, we merge, we even change words to make them flow together smoothly.
So your brain is expecting to hear, say, 8 distinct words, but what it actually gets is maybe 3 continuous blobs of sound.
And it has no idea how to break them apart. So we should probably break down the physics of how that happens.
Let's do it. Let's start with reductions. That's where whole sounds or even small words just seem to disappear.
Reductions happen because of stress. We only stress the important words, so the little function words, the prepositions, articles, auxiliary verbs, they get squashed. They're not important for the core message.
So going to become.
Want to becomes wanna. But the really tricky ones are phrases like did you. It doesn't sound like 2 words at all. It sounds like did ya.
Did ya, right. Yeah.
And a really common one, what do you, often becomes would ya. If a learner is still trying to process the full what do you, the speaker is already 5 words ahead.
Okay, so that's reduction. What's next? Linking.
Linking or catenation. This is what makes speech sound smooth instead of choppy. It happens when a word ends in a consonant and the next one starts with a vowel. That consonant sound just jumps over to the next word.
So pick up.
Becomes pike up. An apple is an apple. A really common one you hear is cup of tea for cup of tea.
Cup of tea, yeah.
That's not laziness. It's how the mouth works efficiently. You don't have to stop the airflow between words.
Okay, and assimilation is even weirder, right? Because the sounds actually change.
Yes, this gets a little more into the weeds of phonetics. Assimilation is when a sound changes to become more like a neighboring sound, just to make it easier to say.
For example?
A classic example is 10 men. It often sounds like 10 men. The N sound, which you make with your tongue, changes to an M sound, which you make with your lips, because your lips are already getting ready to say the M in men.
Wow.
A more common one is don't you. It very often sounds like don't you. The T and the Y sounds merge together to create a cheese sound. So if you're listening for don't you, based on the spelling, you're going to miss don't you every time.
So you absolutely cannot trust the spelling. And the last one is elision, where sounds just get deleted entirely.
Elision is just dropping a sound to make things simpler. The classic is fish and chips becoming fish and chips.
Okay, that's a simple one.
A more subtle one is dropping the T or D sound in the middle of a consonant cluster. So next door often just becomes next door. Or he told her might sound like he told her. And it's so important to remember, these aren't mistakes. This is the natural, default, efficient way English is spoken.
I get the science behind it, but I have to be honest, trying to think about elision and assimilation while I'm trying to have a conversation sounds impossible. Is there a way to internalize all this without having it to be a linguist?
That is the key question. And the answer is yes. The best tool for this is what we call transcribe and compare. You don't need to know the name assimilation, but your brain needs to learn that what he mean is a single unit of sound, not 4 words.
So you listen to a short audio clip.
You write down exactly what you hear. Then you compare it to the actual transcript. And you'll immediately see where the gaps are. You'll see that you heard one sound blob where the script has 4 words. Doing that over and over again forces your brain to recognize those patterns automatically.
It stops being a string of letters and becomes a chunk of sound.
Exactly. And this all ties back to the fundamental rhythm of the language: intonation and stress. English is a stress-timed language, and that's the engine driving all these reductions.
Okay, explain what stress-timed means and why that makes English sound so fast.
So some languages are syllable-timed, where every syllable gets about the same amount of time. English is different. It's stress-timed. The time between the stressed syllables is what stays roughly equal.
Okay.
This means the important words, the nouns, the main verbs, get stretched out and are spoken clearly. But all the little grammar words in between them have to be rushed and compressed to fit into that same time slot.
Ah, so that's why they get reduced and squashed.
That is exactly why. The language is literally designed to make the unimportant words fade into the background. So the speed you perceive isn't just someone talking fast, it's the language itself compressing information.
That's a huge insight. And stress can even change the meaning of a single word, can't it?
For sure. It's a classic minimal pair. Think of the word present. Stress the first syllable, present, and it's a noun.
A gift, a present.
Stress the second, present, and it's a verb, to give something. The meaning completely changes. And that same principle applies to whole sentences.
So how does following the sentence stress help a learner?
It's like an auditory roadmap. If you can just pick out the stressed words, the core information, you can get the main idea even if you miss all the little reduced words in between. If I say, she went to the store to buy some milk, all you really need to hear is went store, buy milk to get the picture.
You can fill in the gaps.
You can. And then layered on top of all of that, you have intonation, the musical rise and fall of the voice that carries all the emotion and intent.
So the patterns, a rising tone is usually a question, right?
A rising tone is typically a yes-no question, yeah? Or it can signal that a list isn't finished yet. A falling tone usually signals a statement is complete, or it's a why question like, where are you going?
But there's a tricky one, isn't there? The fall rise.
The fall rise is a very advanced signal. It usually shows some kind of reservation or doubt, or it's an invitation for the other person to say more. It's very nuanced.
Could you give me an example of how intonation can just completely change the meaning of a sentence?
Sure. Let's take the sentence, I think we should hire John. So just like that, it's a neutral statement.
Okay.
But if I use contrastive stress and a rising tone on his name, I think we should hire John. Suddenly I'm expressing doubt. Maybe I thought we decided against him. The words are identical, but the meaning is the complete opposite, all because of the music. It's how we signal sarcasm, excitement, everything.
So the practice has to be listening for the music, not just the words, and consciously connecting those sounds to what you're seeing, to the speaker's emotion.
It's the only way. You have to move from just translating words to actually comprehending the full message.
All right, so let's say you've started to master the sound. You can actually hear the words clearly now, but the meaning can still be a total mystery because native speakers almost never speak literally. We are now entering the figurative minefield.
We are, because even if you have a huge vocabulary, it's not going to help you when a normal conversation is just packed with slang, idioms, phrasal verbs, and metaphors. Let's start with slang.
What is it about slang that makes it so hard for even advanced learners?
A few things. First, it's highly informal and completely context dependent. Second, it changes so fast. And third, it's often regional or generational.
So something kids say in California is not what an older person in Scotland is going to say.
Not at all. A business English student might not know that my bad just means oops, my mistake. Or if they're talking to someone younger, that's cap means that's a lie. The words themselves are simple, but the meaning is impossible to guess.
And there's always the risk that by the time you learn a slang word, it's already out of date and sounds weird.
That is the core challenge.
Yeah.
So for a learner, the goal probably shouldn't be to use a lot of slang, but to have passive recognition. You just need to know that wheels means a car, or that caught some Z's means you slept. And the only way to keep up is by consuming current popular media.
Okay, but then we get to the really big one. Idiomatic expressions. These are the phrases where the literal words give you zero help, absolutely none.
Right. Idioms are a huge cognitive hurdle because they force your brain to just stop literal processing and pull up a special pre-stored meaning. When you hear, it's raining cats and dogs, you can't waste a single millisecond thinking about actual animals.
You have to instantly access the meaning heavy rain.
Instantly. Or bite the bullet, which means to face a tough situation. Or hit the nail on the head, meaning you said something exactly right.
So it's not just about remembering the definition. It's about being fast enough to bypass the literal meaning altogether. How should someone practice that?
Memorizing long lists of idioms is really inefficient. The key is context. You need to learn them in categories. Idioms about money, idioms about secrets, and every single one has to be learned in a full example sentence. You need to see how the idiom actually works, so your brain starts to treat it like a single chunk of vocabulary.
Okay, next up, phrasal verbs, the two-word puzzles. They look simple, but there's so many of them, and they all seem to have multiple meanings.
They are a massive barrier. You take a simple verb like look, and then you add a tiny particle like up to, into, or out, and the meaning completely changes. Look up to is admire. Look into is investigate. Look out is be careful.
And the problem just multiplies because one phrasal verb can have 3 or 4 different meanings itself.
It does. Let's take put. Put up can mean to tolerate something like I can't put up with the noise, or it can mean to build something or to let someone stay at your house.
Right, to put someone up for the night?
And put off can mean to postpone, or it can mean to disgust someone. A learner hears put off, and if they can't grab the right meaning from the context, the rest of the sentence is just gone. And that's before we even get to the grammar, like whether you can separate them or not.
Oh, right. You can pick the book up, but you can't say look the child after.
Exactly. So the strategy here has to be systematic. Focus on one base verb at a time. Master all the phrasal verbs with get, then all the ones with take. And really focus on the most common ones. You don't need to know all of them.
So, beyond these fixed phrases, we also have to deal with things like metaphors and similes.
Right, which require you to understand an abstract connection between two things. A simile is easy. It uses like or as busy as a bee.
Okay.
A metaphor is trickier. It just says one thing is another. Time is money. The listener has to quickly figure out what quality they share. In this case, it's that both are valuable, limited resources that can be wasted. If you don't make that connection fast, you stumble.
And all of this leads to a broader point about register and tone. It's not just what you say, but how you say it.
Register is all about matching your language to the situation. You use formal language with your boss. More complex sentences, no slang. With your friends, you use casual register contractions, simpler words. Using the wrong register can make you sound, well, awkward or even unprofessional.
And tone is what tells you if the speaker is being sincere.
Tone is the emotional layer, and it's carried by your intonation. This is where sarcasm lives. A speaker might say, oh, that's a great idea. But if their voice is flat and dripping with irony, the real meaning is, that's a terrible idea. The sophisticated listener always trusts the tone over the words.
Okay, so this next part is, it's the truly unspoken secret, isn't it? We've covered sound and we've covered meaning, but culture is what dictates how all of that gets used. We say so much without saying anything at all.
Exactly. We're talking about nonverbal cues, your body language, your facial expressions, gestures. Native speakers process this information instantly and unconsciously, and it provides this incredibly rich context for the words being spoken.
It either confirms what you're saying or it betrays what you're really feeling.
And these cues are so culturally specific. We talk about eye contact, but think about personal space proxemics.
Right.
In American or British culture, if you stand too close to someone in a conversation, it can feel aggressive. In other cultures, that same distance is completely normal and shows warmth. A learner could have perfect English, but be making the other person deeply uncomfortable without even knowing why.
And paralanguage, the way we use our voice, is another one.
A huge one. The volume you speak at. In some cultures, speaking loudly shows you're passionate and sincere. In others, it's just plain rude. The speed of your speech can signal excitement or maybe nervousness. A good listener is constantly triangulating. What are the words? What is the body language? And what is the paralanguage telling me?
And when there's a contradiction between the words and the nonverbals, you always trust the nonverbals.
Always. The person who says, of course I'd be happy to help, while sighing and avoiding eye contact is not happy to help. A great way for learners to practice this is to watch a movie scene on mute. Try to figure out what's happening just from the body language. Then watch it again with sound and see how close you were.
I like that. Okay, so now let's talk about the flow of a conversation itself, the dance of dialogue. There are all these unwritten rules about taking turns.
There are. And native speakers use really subtle signals to show they're about to start talking or that they're finished. It could be a little rise in their intonation, a pause, or even just taking a breath. You have to learn to spot those moments to jump in smoothly.
And interrupting is so culturally dependent, isn't it?
Very. In some cultures, people talking over each other is a sign of an energetic, engaged conversation. But in a lot of, say, American or British professional settings, it's seen as a major sign of disrespect. You really have to read the room.
But one thing that seems universal for showing you're listening is back-channeling.
Back-channeling is absolutely critical. It's the oil in the engine of conversation. It's all the little sounds and gestures we make while someone else is talking.
Like saying, uh-huh, or right, or just nodding your head.
Yes, those little signals tell the speaker, I'm with you, I'm following, keep going. If you don't provide that feedback, the speaker might think you're lost or bored, and the whole conversation could just grind to a halt.
This all leads to what has to be the most advanced skill of all, reading between the lines. Implicature and innuendo.
This is where linguistic skill meets deep cultural insight, and it's where so many advanced learners get stuck, because it's not about grammar anymore. It's about pragmatics, how context shapes meaning. Native speakers are efficient. We imply way more than we actually state.
So why do we do that? What's the mechanism behind it?
Well, a useful way to think about it is through the idea of conversational maxims. The theory is that we all cooperate in conversation by following some basic rules.
Yeah.
Be truthful, be relevant, be clear, and give just the right amount of information.
Okay.
Implicature happens when a speaker very obviously breaks one of those rules, and that forces the listener to figure out the hidden meaning.
Okay, let's go back to those tricky examples. If a friend asks you to a party and you say, I have a lot of work to do.
Right. You've just broken the rule of relevance. Your answer is not a yes or a no, so your friend has to infer the connection. The implication is, my workload makes it impossible for me to go, so the answer is no. It's an indirect, polite refusal.
And the professional one, that's an interesting idea.
This is a classic. Here, you're probably breaking the rule of being clear or giving enough information. Interesting is a weak, non-committal word. If you really like the idea, you'd say, that's a brilliant idea. Or, that could save us a lot of money.
So the vagueness is the signal.
The vagueness is the signal that you probably don't like the idea, but you're being polite. Detecting that requires you to understand the cultural importance of saving face and avoiding direct criticism.
So you constantly have to ask yourself, what is the real intention here? Is it politeness? Is it sarcasm?
And that brings us to the final frontier of fluency, humor. Because a good joke requires you to have mastered everything we've just talked about.
Right. If you miss any piece of it, the joke just falls flat.
Exactly. Puns rely on you hearing the subtle differences in sound. Sarcasm relies entirely on you detecting the right tone of voice. And the biggest barrier of all,
Cultural references.
cultural references.
Yeah.
Native speakers just assume you know about that one TV show from the 90s, or that historical event, or a bunch of sports metaphors. If someone describes a chaotic situation as a real dumpster fire, you need both the idiomatic and the cultural knowledge to get it. The only way to bridge that gap is to consume the culture itself, the popular TV, the news, everything.
Okay, we have laid out the full map of the challenge. The sonic landscape, the hidden meanings, the cultural dance. So what do you actually do? The first step, it seems, is a complete change in your mindset.
It is. The single biggest mistake that holds advanced learners back is that they are still trying to translate everything word for word in their head as they listen.
Which is just impossible at native speed.
It creates a massive cognitive bottleneck. Your brain is working so hard on the translation that you immediately miss the next 5 words. You're constantly playing catch-up, and you never will.
So the solution is to train your brain to actually think in English.
You have to. You have to move English from being this foreign code that you decipher into being the actual operating system for your thoughts. And there are practical ways to do that.
Like what?
Start by talking to yourself in English. Narrate what you're doing as you cook dinner. Plan your day out loud in English. After you listen to something, immediately summarize it out loud in English. It forces your brain to connect the English sounds directly to the concepts with no translation step in the middle.
It sounds hard.
It's very frustrating at first, but it's the only path.
Okay, so beyond that mindset shift, we also need to listen more strategically. Let's talk about predictive listening.
Predictive listening is about using cues to anticipate what's coming next. It lowers your cognitive load. So before you have a meeting, you brainstorm the vocabulary you're likely to hear. During a conversation, you listen for grammatical signals. If you hear someone say, although, your brain should immediately prepare for a contrast.
Or the reason for that is signals and explanation is coming.
Right. You're not just passively receiving sound, you're actively predicting the structure of the conversation.
And another key strategy is prioritization, realizing that not all words are created equal. This goes back to stress timing.
It does. A strategic listener knows to focus their energy on the stressed words, the nouns, the main verbs, the adjectives. That's the core message. You learn to filter out the noise.
What kind of noise?
The little unstressed grammar words, for one. But also critically, all the feller words, the ums, the uhs, the likes, the you-knows, they're just empty placeholders. You train your ear to ignore them and just grab the important stuff.
But you are going to miss things. It's inevitable, so you need to know how to ask for clarification without derailing the whole conversation.
And timing and phrasing are everything here. You can't just jump in and say, what? Wait for a natural pause.
Right.
And be specific. Instead of making them repeat everything, try to confirm what you thought you heard. Sorry, are you saying the deadline is Tuesday or Thursday? Or, I didn't quite catch that last word. Did you say coast or cost? It shows you are listening and you just need a little help.
So let's bring this all home. What should a daily practice routine look like? What's in the toolkit? Let's start with immersion.
Controlled immersion is huge. Change the language on your phone and your computer to English. Make it unavoidable. But you can also create full immersion by finding language exchange partners online. There are websites for that. Dedicate an hour 3 times a week, where you are only allowed to speak English, that pressure is how you grow.
And for media consumption, you have to be intentional about it.
You can't just have it on in the background. The best method is to use layers. Start by watching something with English audio and high-quality English subtitles that helps you connect the sounds you're hearing to the words on the screen.
That's great for connected speech.
It is. Then, the next step is to rewatch something you love, a movie where you already know the plot, but this time with no subtitles at all. Because your brain already knows the story, it can dedicate all of its resources to just decoding the audio.
Okay, and finally, let's go back to shadowing. Can you walk us through the exact process? Because it sounds incredibly powerful.
Shadowing is powerful because it connects your ears to your mouth. It builds that muscle memory. So you pick a short clip, maybe a minute long. You listen to it once just to understand it.
Yep.
Then you play it again and you speak along with the speaker just a fraction of a second behind them. You try to copy everything, not just the words, but the rhythm, the pitch, the reductions, the linking, all of it. It feels very strange at first, but it is one of the fastest ways to internalize the natural sound of the language.
And the final tool in the kit, recording yourself.
This is how you close the feedback loop. You have to hear what you actually sound like. Record yourself shadowing or just talking for a minute. When you listen back, you'll hear exactly where you're hesitating, where your intonation is flat, or where you're not using those natural reductions. It's an incredibly valuable diagnostic tool. #tag outro. So we've really journeyed through all the layers of what it takes to understand native speakers. And the secret, as you can see, isn't some single trick. It's this holistic approach. You have to tackle the sound, the hidden meanings, and the cultural rules all at once. You're not just learning grammar anymore. You're learning a whole new way to interpret human intention within a specific culture.
And it takes a lot of persistence. You have to be okay with being confused. But every time you misunderstand an idiom or have to ask someone to repeat themselves, that's not a failure. That's a data point. It's a learning opportunity. If you really dedicate yourself to these strategies, to decoding the sound, deciphering the meaning, observing the culture, you will unlock a much deeper, much more real connection to English.
And that raises a final interesting thought. If true comprehension really does depend on all this implicit cultural knowledge, then when you finally master understanding a native speaker, how much has your own way of thinking, of seeing the world, actually changed to align with that new cultural framework? It's something to ponder as you continue on your journey.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into understanding native speakers. If you found this discussion valuable, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. We'll see you next time.